Hi everyone, welcome back. Today I'm going to be tackling one question or an area of a question that I'm sure many product managers have grappled with, and it's around the aspect of how do I effectively break down business OKRs that we have decided on into actionable initiatives that drives actual results or moves the key metric forward. And this conversation is about a subset of that question, which I'll tackle in subsequent videos as well. But I'm sure you've been in a scenario where you've had a lot of back and forth about what the objectives and the key results for your team would be, and then you are tasked with the responsibility of identifying initiatives that drive the results. And then you always get to this point where you're wondering, yeah, but the initiative is a good idea, but does it move the needle forward? Now, for today, I'm looking at different ways by which you can understand objectives and how your organization defines value, which can help you contextualize how your initiatives contribute towards the value that your business has defined. And we know that in this fast-paced environment or economy, setting clear objectives is just the starting point. That's the beginning. It doesn't really guarantee anything. But the real challenge is really taking an objective and translating it into high-level goals with concrete initiatives that can help your team execute effectively. So being able to categorize your initiative into the different buckets of OKRs or the different buckets of value is very important, so that when you think about an initiative, you are able to easily picture what part of the business value chain does this initiative plug into. That's what we're tackling today. I'll share practical examples of strategies within these buckets of values and common examples that exist for you to have something to go forward with. So grab your pen and paper and let's get into the video. The first aspect is understanding how your company creates value. And according to Joshua Arnold, he has a framework for thinking about value, which I'll probably link in the description. But your organization has about 4 ways that they see or understand value. The first thing is you're either increasing revenue as a business organization, you're protecting revenue, you're reducing costs, or you're avoiding costs. Now, this may change depending on the quarter, year, or wherever stage the organization is. It may also change depending on the kinds of organization. Some organizations don't even deal much with revenue. Some are mostly about managing costs where they don't sell a product. So it depends on the stage of the organization, the type of the organization, or whenever it is that this different value begins to show up. So what I'm going to be doing in this video is tackling each of all these and giving you strategies within each of these 4 value chains and examples of scenarios or initiatives that plug into some of these strategies. First, let's talk about increasing revenue. Increasing revenue, as the name implies, it might seem very simple, but as the name implies, increasing revenue basically involves identifying opportunities to grow the revenue for the business from new or existing customers. So think about it this way. Let's say our revenue was 10 million last year. Now we want to grow our revenue from 10 million to 15 million. It's that simple. It's basically the amount that our customers are paying us. Can we get more from what our customers are paying us? It has nothing to do with the amount that we invest into making that money. It has nothing to do with either new or existing, both counts, but it's around this is how much we made with respect to revenue, and we want to increase that number by a particular factor. It's that simple. Now, one strategy under increasing revenue or within increasing revenue is either expanding your market to new target audiences. For example, if your software serves maybe small startups, you may consider, you know what, maybe we want to expand our market to capture bigger organization or growth stage organization. So it means that if you have 200 customers today, you want to capture a new market that will probably increase your customer base to about 500. So you are looking at new audiences and using your product to acquire new audiences so that you get more money from those extra 50 or the new markets. For example, you have like a Trello that offers features that are now tailored to larger organizations, maybe like advanced reporting or maybe some things around AI. So you're capturing new audiences that are different from the audiences that you're selling today. Another strategy for increasing revenue is either moving upward or downward to cater to different customer segments. So an example is you may have a SaaS platform that introduces an enterprise tier, moving upwards for premium clients that need maybe some kind of hand holding and things like that. So it's probably still the same product, but you're just creating another pricing tier to cater to specific needs for different customers. So you're not really changing much in the product. You're probably changing how you are delivering the product to them so that you are offering them a premium exclusive service, like work with your customer success team to set you up. We're going to work with you to onboard you, things like that, so that you can charge more for that premium service, even though you're not necessarily making changes to the product. So you're either moving upward or downward to cater for the different market segments within your existing customer segment that have very specific needs. Another strategy for increasing revenue is either upselling or cross-selling to your existing customers. And this is basically with your existing customers looking for things like add-ons that make their life easier that they can pay a little extra for. I think a typical example for this is looking at products like Salesforce. You have the base product that everybody offers, but then you probably have like a marketplace where there are add-ons and plugins that even if they are paying, let's say $10 for the base product per month, they can pay an extra $2 for an add-on that solves a specific problem. You're not changing your market segment. You're just cross-selling and upselling things to them based off of what they already have within your product and adding more to it at a little extra token. So with that strategy, you have different marketplace and plugins where you can offer a little extra. Another example of that would be Atlassian marketplace. Atlassian has their own core products, which is like Jira and Confluence, but they have a marketplace where developers can put in plugins or apps which users can buy, and part of that revenue is shared with Atlassian. So technically, Atlassian is not really developing for the marketplace. It's opened up the marketplace for developers to develop, and then they share the revenue. So without doing anything, just making a marketplace available, Atlassian is getting a percentage of that revenue, which is also increasing their revenue beyond what they would normally get for users that are using Atlassian. So those are three very popular examples around increasing revenue. It has nothing to do with cost again. It's about how can we make more money from the users that we have today or make more money from new users. All right? Okay. The next category of value chain that I'm going to be talking about is about protecting revenue. Now we've tackled increasing revenue around getting us from 10 million per annum, for example, to 15 million increase by a factor. Protecting revenue is about sustaining your current revenue and market share and saying, you know what, we're not even trying to do too much. We just want to maintain the 10. We're not trying to reduce our cost. We're not trying to get 10 to 20 or 10 to 12 or 10 to 15. We just want to stay steady at 10. And that may also be a very valid value chain, particularly maybe with tough economic climate or very tough competition. It may be unrealistic to be aiming for higher revenue. It may just be do everything to maintain our current market share. Now, the first strategy with that is to focus on customer retention, to say the customers that we have, we're focused on keeping them. We're not focused on getting more. We're not focused on reducing. We're just focused on we have a customer base of 100 and we have a revenue of 100 million from them. We want to maintain that and keep them as satisfied as possible. So with that, retention is the goal. So it involves introducing very specific things that are going to keep your customers from going away. Thinking about the things that may be appealing with the competitors and making sure that your product serves the needs of your customer and they don't have a reason to consider an alternative product. Example is maybe like Slack. They offer tutorials and tips and things to help people maximize productivity within the product, because there's a possibility your customers and your product that you don't know everything that you have to offer. So what you're looking at here is how do we make sure that one, we are building the right things that keeps our customers or that prevent them from going to our competition, and how do we make sure that our customers even know all the things that make our product great for them. We're not trying to get new people, we're trying to make sure the people that are here stay here. That's one strategy. Another strategy for protecting your revenue is just to constantly innovate. So it's also similar to retention, but making sure that you have interesting things that whet the appetite of your customers as often as possible, so that even if they are satisfied, but they see that you're constantly innovating, you're bringing in new things, you're also innovating around things that they've not even asked for, so that they see things and they realize that I didn't even know I needed that, and they stay in your products. It's also helpful to continue to stay innovative. An example could be like maybe an Adobe continually improving their creative cloud by adding a suite of tools and new features and AI to ensure that their customers stay instead of switching platforms. So it's quite similar, but it's more about the innovation and also leveraging ongoing trends, technology, AI, data, and things like that to bring in solutions that your customers did not even know they needed. That's how to stay competitive. by innovative regularly. The last strategy under protecting your revenue is things around contractual adjustment and legal agreement. And this is also very key because your typical SaaS product will probably have a monthly plan or an annual plan. And those plans are quite risky. On a monthly basis, if I have to renew, the renewal time gives me an opportunity to reconsider whether this product is really the best fit for me. So locking your customers into contractual agreements and saying, you know what, sign a 5-year contract with us because it will benefit you by locking your price at this point, so we won't increase our price for the next 5 years. But on the other hand, it means you already have protected that customer's interest for 5 years. So you have protected that revenue for 5 years. So those are contractual agreements that you can make to ensure that the customer stays with you for longer, and then you have a continuous and steady flow of revenue because of that commitment. Securing long-term contracts would help mitigate the risk of the customer churn because you're sure that in that 5 years, they're not going anywhere and you're going to get the revenue. And of course, when you're coming up on that renewal, there are things that the customer is delighted to also extend that contract. Okay, now the third value chain bucket, as I'm calling it, that I'm going to be exploring is about reducing costs. We've talked about increasing your revenue, we've talked about protecting your revenue, but all of this, we've not talked about what goes into making of the revenue, and that is cost. So you might decide to reduce costs. And reducing costs, what you're trying to do is increasing your margin without raising your prices or selling more or increasing your revenue, but you're trying to increase your margin. So it's really about optimizing what you have today and reduce the expenses that you have today. And there are several ways by which you can do that to make sure that we don't want to increase prices. We don't want to sell to more people. We want to sell to the same people that we've had. Maybe we've done everything to protect our revenue and we're not trying to increase revenue. We just want to protect our revenue and reduce costs so that our profit margin is increased. So in that kind of situation, you'll be looking at things around streamlining operations and using a lot of automation. So if you have to automate your support with things like chatbots or using like an AI-powered ticketing system to handle routine queries so that your support team members are not boggled down by recurring questions. Those are ways by you can streamline your operations. So that in some cases, when a lot of organizations go into streamlining operation, those are when you see them reduce head count because they'll be like, why do we need to support people if we can have a support person and an AI chatbot? Not advisable, but that's the thinking that goes behind some of those things. Reducing the need for manual overheads and freeing up resources. Now, you could free up resources, not necessarily because you don't need them, but you could free up resources to put into other areas of business that require investment. And then eventually you increase your margin if you are not trying to increase your revenue. Another strategy under reducing your costs is to improve your efficiency by outsourcing some of the non-core activities. So for example, you can decide we need to outsource our support. If you think that paying for a monthly support might not necessarily be worth it. We don't need an in-house team for marketing. We don't need an in-house team for legal. Let's outsource those and let us just consult those services as at when needed so that we're not paying somebody full-time to do those services for us. So those are ways by which you can improve efficiency, just outsourcing non-core activities. Another way by which organization can also reduce costs and improve their margins as a way of maintaining their value chain is to implement leaner processes. Apart from automation, is like what processes can help us do things faster. So for example, maybe they decide to adopt agile methodologies so that they can release faster, so that their customers are happy, and then development cost is not as high because they can easily go back and iterate and make adjustments with very low risk. So those are ways by which you can reduce costs by implementing and adopting simplified processes or processes that make things go faster. So that's another strategy under reducing costs. Again, reducing costs is really about not looking at your revenue, but looking at areas where there could be potential waste, reducing that waste so that we can have higher margins and a lot of all those other resources committed into other areas of the business. And now the last value buckets that exists, which your organization may be thinking about and you should also think about, is around avoiding costs. And this might seem very similar to reducing costs, but avoiding costs is basically preventing future expenses. Reducing costs is about what are we spending today, how do we minimize wastage based on where we are today. But avoiding costs is around preventing future expenses that could eventually hit your business in the long run. So it's preempting those expenses and saying, okay, we're going to run into this expense or this cost in the next couple of years or months, what do we do to make sure that we don't hit that expense? And one strategy is to prevent future expenses by investing in preventive maintenance. So for example, optimizing your code base, refactoring code base, and ensuring that the software remains scalable and stable as it grows, so that your engineering team is not spending a lot of time massaging a 20-year-old code. Another strategy under avoiding costs is to manage risk by putting safeguards in place. So for example, you implement very robust security measures in place like software audits, encryption, access control to prevent costly breaches, because guess what? If your software system is breached, that could cost you a lot financially. So it may take up a lot of all the revenue that you've earned already. Putting those safeguards in place to mitigate risks are ways of avoiding future costs. It's not a cost that you're incurring today, it's a cost that you're preventing tomorrow. And the last strategy I'll talk about under avoiding costs is around regular updates and software patches. So like a cybersecurity team can emphasize the importance of keeping your software up to date, keeping your libraries up to date, regularly applying patches and updates, and making sure that you're on top of your security digest, you're on top of all your vulnerabilities, you're on top of all your data access control, again, to prevent some of these breaches. Because if you don't dedicate time to some of these patches and updates, they could cost you in the future. So it's also about managing your risk, but specifically with respect to cybersecurity and compliance. So these are categories or strategies under avoiding costs as a value chain. Now, I'm sure that having gone through each of all these 4 value chains and 3 different strategies under each of them, you've probably thought of some initiatives that your team have brought up or your team members have decided to do, and you struggle to fit them in a bucket. So for example, your team has come to you to say, yeah, we want to migrate from virtual machines to containers, and you're like, yeah, how does this impact the business? Because you don't see where the revenue is coming from, and partly because you know it's an internal initiative. Now, with this 4 value chain, you can easily say, are we trying to increase revenue? Maybe not. Are we trying to protect revenue? Maybe not. Are we trying to reduce costs, or are we trying to avoid costs? So you can easily describe where each of all these initiatives fall. Or when the business comes and says the market is really tough and increasing revenue may not necessarily be the focus right now. We're looking for waste and excess. Where can we reduce costs? You understand that the buckets that the organization is trying to focus on at that point in time is the bucket of reducing costs. And if your engineering team comes to you with some initiatives that you can't really see how they add value to the customers directly, or customers have not requested, you can easily understand that some of these initiatives probably fall under avoiding future costs. So they are not initiatives that should be dismissed. They are conversations that should be had, because you understand which value chain of the business it falls under, and you can easily make a case for it within the organization to dedicate and allocate time to some of these changes where necessary. So, a quick recap. In order to increase business value, focusing on revenue, protecting it, cutting unnecessary costs, and avoiding future expenses are the ways in which your organization think. Your organization may be thinking about either one or more of all these categories at different points in time, depending on the economic situation, depending on the kind of organization, and the overall focus of the business at that point in time. So I hope this was helpful to you, and if you found it helpful, hit the like button and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.